This is Lowell Tolhurst, and you're listening to Rolling Stone, Mexico.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm a professional.
Hello, welcome to Rolling Stone, Mexico. We're
you.
very honored that you are here.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about your new book, Cured. You are promoting your book, Cured in Mexico City. What feeling is involved in recalling your past with Robert Smith and the band?
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of the book was to explain my life to myself, you know. So it's been cathartic to write it. Been great to come here because probably the most fans of The Cure in the world live in Mexico.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
And what were the most complicated memories to write?
Well, the book's 3 parts. The first part is just me, Robert, Michael, Pearl Thompson.
The childhood, right?
No, childhood, yeah, and that's not difficult. And it wouldn't matter anyway because nobody's going to know if I'm writing what happened anyway because there's only those people. The last part, the same thing, because it was after I left The Cure. The hardest part, the middle, which is the stuff that Cure fans think they know. You know, that's the difficult thing because they read stuff and they think it's all true. So at the beginning of the book, I said this is not my autobiography. This is a memoir. This is how I remember things happening. But there was difficult parts in the book, difficult events. You know, the death of my mother, my reconciliations with people. You know, it's all. But it's a creative experience for me.
Maybe painful, you know?
Yeah, painful, but cathartic and liberating in the end.
So you feel free after writing?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I felt from writing it, and also, you know, I've spent the last couple of years talking about it to everybody all around the world. It's allowed me, my third act in my life, to be free and liberated, which is great, you know.
The book reflects some redemption rather than apologies. Like a lot of people think that it's going to be an apology book, right?
Yeah.
But was that your original intention, writing this book?
Well, my initial intention, as I said, was really to explain my life to myself. I was in my 50s and I had a lot of stuff that I could think about, but I wanted to not categorize it, but I wanted to explain it so that when I wasn't here, people would know how I felt about it because I didn't know how anybody felt about it. You said apology in there. It was not really an apology, any of it. But I live in a very different way now than I lived 30 years ago. Very different in mentally, spiritually, everything. So it's written it's written with regard to that.
Maybe there were. Do you think that you when you were writing, you recall some doubts to stop writing it and maybe to say, okay, it's done. I'm not going to write it.
At the beginning, that was the case because I had an agent in New York, Peter McGuigan, and when we decided, okay, you should start writing this book, I had written some parts, like, you know, it wasn't chronological. I wrote the part for Reflections in Tour in 2011, and after that he said, okay, now you should start to write the whole thing, and he would call me, and for 6 months I would go, yeah, no, not yet, because I was terrified, you know, because I realized for the book to be authentic, I would have to be completely honest. And that's very, you know, it's difficult because your ego says, oh no, you know, it was everything else and everybody else, you know, but I had to take responsibility. So that's the difference. It's not like apology, it's taking responsibility for my own actions and cleaning up my side of the street, you know.
What do you still admire from Robert Smith?
What do I still admire in him? You know, I've known him probably the longest I've known anybody my whole life. I've known him 55 years. You know, they say familiarity breeds contempt, you know. We know each other so well, we know each other's good parts and bad parts. One thing I really do like about him is no matter how famous The Cure became, no matter how big, Robert was always very kind and acknowledge the fans very much, you know, always take time to talk to them a little bit, you know, even if he was just going somewhere quick and stuff. He was always that way, and I think that for me is like the punk ethic, you know. He still has that.
What was your feeling when you meet him and all the Cure members at the Hall of Fame, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yeah. Well, that was a strange thing because I had a letter from the president of the Hall of Fame, and he worked with The Cure many years ago in New York, and he said, you know, it made him pleased that we were going there. And Robert wrote to me and said, well, do you want to go? And I said, yeah, I'm going, you know, because I've lived in California for 25 years. I understand what it means to the fans and how they feel, because people that grew up in a little small town, a small place, and they were Cure fans, it was difficult for them at the beginning. And so I said, that's the reason that we should go. And also, we have not seen each other all together. And maybe, you know, we're getting older, you know, it's a good chance to do that. And so in the end, you know, we all went, and you know, I think part of that was made more poignant because Andy Anderson passed away just before we went. But for me, it was good when you know, somebody asked me, well, who should you have as to induct you, and I suggested Trent. And when he said, yeah, great. And he came out, and the first thing he said in his speech was, you know, I grew up in a little town in Pennsylvania. So, you know, I said, Robert, hey, this is what I meant, you know. And so I understood that. And Robert is a very smart man, you know, he understood that as well. So it was good. I mean, it was crazy, 2 days and about 8 hours sleep, I think, and the whole time, you know, but it was nice to see everybody. Most people in the band I've seen and I talked to. Perry Bemonte I hadn't seen in 20 years, so that was new, but other than that, I see everybody.
And what is easier to you, to write a book or to write a song?
Well, a book's a lot longer. Yeah. I don't know, they're both a creative process, and I loved both of them. For me, the real revelation about writing a book was how much I enjoyed the creative process. I mean, I even enjoyed the really boring bits of book writing, like, you know, copy editing and proofreading. I learned all the Latin phrases so I could do it properly. Just, you know, I like the whole process of doing it, and so I don't really see any difference. I'm going to be making another record, and I'm going to be making another book, so I get a chance to do both things.
If you have to choose a soundtrack for your book, what songs would you put it in?
I don't know. I can tell you what I listened to when I was writing it. Yeah. I read a book by Stephen King called On Writing, and he said when he writes, he closes the door and he listens to like Metallica or something really loud. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen for me. So I would have just ambient stuff like Eno or Boards of Canada, something like that. Something that didn't have any lyrics in it, because otherwise I start typing the lyrics as I'm listening. So, you know, yeah, but just something that's doesn't attach to me. That's what I would listen to. That's the soundtrack, really.
Okay. How much did your Catholic education influence your personal development?
You know, it's amazing to me how many artists in all fields come from a Catholic background. I think there's something about the guilt and persecution that lends itself well to artistry. You know, I mean, there are other religions that do that too, I suppose, like if you're Jewish, but you know, it was the place where we met, really, you know, myself, Michael and Robert, and then we met Pearl, and because Pearl went to another school close by, and he wasn't a Catholic, but he went to this crazy school that was like full of weird biker people, and you know, not that all bikers are weird. I suppose it really, more than anything, it kind of made it very intense, so we had to do something to escape, you know.
What are the most important rules in your life?
Most important rules?
Rules, yeah.
Okay. You know, it's a very old-fashioned rule. I suppose it comes from my mother, but I do unto others as I would be done by. You know, I treat people like I want to be treated. I try to. I try to, well, I have to be totally honest in my life most days, because if I'm not, it will cause me problems, and I realise that. So I try to be honest, and I try to be, you know, I'm not a saint. I'm not a saint, but, you know, I'm a lot better person 30 years now, later, than I was 30 years ago.
Okay. Going back to the Cure past, were the egos a fight constant in the band?
With the what?
The egos?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they always are in any you know, artistic endeavour. You know, there's always going to be some kind of. But that is also, I saw something where Viv Albertine from the Slits was talking about her relationship with Ari Up, the singer. And she said it was like a little piece of sand in the oyster. It was kind of irritating, but it made the pearl a beautiful thing. And I think sometimes, you know, it's like Joe Strummer said, don't mess with the chemistry in the band, you know. It's the chemistry that's important. It doesn't matter if you get the best bass player, the best drummer, the best guitarist, the best singer. That's not going to make the best band. The best band comes from the chemistry between people. And when you remove that, the band's not so good.
How do you imagine Robert Smith reading your book?
Has he read it?
I don't know. How do you
you're
imagine?
asking me?
Yeah, how
okay.
do you imagine?
Okay, I'm sorry. So when I first started to write, I wrote to Robert and I said, guess what? I'm writing a book. It's going to be, you know, the story of how we started. You know, it's important for me to do that. And I said, but you know, I'm going to give you the first copy of the book before it's published, the manuscript. And if there's anything, you know, you think you don't like or you feel's wrong, maybe I'll change it. You know, we'll see. Maybe, yeah. But you know, I want to be clear with you. I don't want to. You know, it's not going to be a book that's going to upset anything to you at all. I knew that from the beginning. I said, but I want you to know what I'm doing. And so he went, okay. And then 6 months passed and I had heard nothing and the book was published. So I'm like, okay, he must be fine, the book's been. And then about a year later, I got an email. We were talking about some stuff because I wanted to make a film of the book. And he said, you know, I'm really pleased and happy for you that you wrote a book. He said it's a great achievement. It's really a good thing to do, you know, to move on in your life. But this thing and this thing and this thing, and there was a big list. And I looked at the list and I just thought, none of those things is actually in the book. Not one of them. They are all, and this goes to you guys, you fellows. Every single thing that he was concerned about came from a review of the book. Somebody had written a review and conflated some ideas or not been, you know. And I said, no, look, this is what I say about this in the book. This is what I say about this. And so then, you know, I get an email later that says, okay, thank you, you know, for the answer, and kind of big kiss, you know. So, you know, I think it's hard, you know, it must be hard in a way for Robert to accept that somebody else, you know, other than him is going to write something about that. But I don't feel bad about that at all.
That's an important thing. Right?
Yeah, it's very important, and it's my life and it's his life. We shared it, you know. So I'm gonna do it. But like I said at the beginning, you asked me what are the things, my rules in life. You know, I only do to anybody else what I would do to myself. You know.
Yeah. What is the worst part of success?
Worst part of success.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you what the best part is.
Okay.
Yeah, the best part is like David Bowie said. The best part is if you call a restaurant and it's really popular and you want a table, you can get a table.
Yeah.
Right, you know, that's the best part. The worst part is you're like a sailor or a soldier or something, you know, you don't see your family for lots of the time. I mean, I read something, a very famous Mexican musician said, Carlos Santana. He said, you know, now I do like 6 weeks on the road, 6 weeks at home with my family. So I split my time 50-50, and I think that is very wise, because fame is a fleeting thing, and it doesn't mean anything. It really means nothing. Fame is ephemeral. What is everlasting is the fans and their attention and their love, you know. 40 years after I started the band, I arrived in Mexico City and I received so much love from people. Emotionally, it's been overwhelming to me. That's what's important to me. Yeah.
What can you tell us about your next album?
Not much, because it's kind of a secret, but next March.
One secret, please.
Yeah, yeah. Next March, I'm doing. It's like a sort of post-punk supergroup, so that there's some other people involved. At least one person is very well known to people that would know me. So okay, I'll leave it at that. But not in the group I was in some other group, and we're making an album with. A producer that produced U2 and REM, a few different people. So right now we're doing it. When I get home, I have to get off the plane and go straight to the studio. Okay. It's really happy. Makes me really happy. It's like our influences. You know, it's like Can and all those things that happened. It's like a post-punk version of that.
Sounds good.
That's the most I've told anybody.
Oh, thank you.
Well, it's Rolling Stone, right?
Yeah. And the last question, well, it's any message to your Mexican fans?
Hey, I love you. I'm coming back in December. I'm coming to Guadalajara.
Guadalajara?
Yeah. So I'm coming back. You know, I can't miss this. And I live so close. You know, I live 4 hours away on the plane. Close. It's very close. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much to be here at Rolling Stone, Mexico.
Thank you.
And it was great. It's a great book.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Rolling Stone.